El trabajo inicia en el 2008 asociándose con la concertación de mujeres. En un inicio se creó un sistema de microcréditos para mujeres y poco a poco los fondos de espera se fueron destinando a la inversión en iniciativas económicas. Ahora la principal misión de espera es fortalecer los pequeños negocios de las mujeres con la intención de darle sostenibilidad financiera y rentabilidad. Para lograrlo, Mary Pence acompaña el trabajo organizativo de las asociaciones locales con las que se trabajan, para abordando también procesos de salud emocional.
No solo se les da una atención por tener el crédito, se les da una atención más integral de lo que es la salud emocional, la asistencia en sus iniciativas económicas, se les da, vemos la parte organizativa de las mujeres, vemos en general cómo se aplica la iniciativa, el beneficio que reciben las mujeres y la administración también, y dirigida a quienes, para quienes trabajan las mujeres sus iniciativas.
La economía solidaria es la economía que hacemos en la comunidad, entre nosotras las mujeres, donde nos podemos dar cuenta que podemos adquirir cosas sin necesidad de tener dinero, que podemos solventar necesidades a través de esa solidaridad entre las mujeres.
Recibimos apoyo en salud emocional. Eso es algo bien importante porque nosotros como mujeres no necesitamos también solo, ¿verdad?, de trabajo y todo eso, también necesitamos tener encuentros, también por lo menos sanar nuestras heridas que tenemos, ¿verdad?, de los pasados, y este programa también en eso me ha ayudado bastante porque uno quiera o no tiene heridas pasadas que a veces uno ni a la familia se las cuenta, y ahí por medio de Mary Pence y concertación de mujeres, pues hemos tenido esa oportunidad de pertenecer ahí, ¿verdad?, a eso de salud emocional.
Pues yo quizás darle las gracias siempre porque siempre los toman en cuenta pues, como mujeres, y por los talleres también, por todo lo que los han apoyado y nos han ayudado.
Darle las gracias a Mary Pence, que ellas han sido las que nos han apoyado, dándole las gracias a ellas, que sin ellas nosotros estuviéramos ahí haciendo nada, cuidando niños todavía ahí.
Yo le doy las gracias a Mary Pence y a Concertación de Mujeres y a otras instituciones, pues que haya oportunidad de seguir apoyando a las mujeres, y porque necesidades en las comunidades hay muchas y como mujeres necesitamos el apoyo siempre. Yo estoy muy agradecida, les agradezco mucho y abrazos para todos.
Para nosotras, las mujeres que trabajan en conjunto con la concertación de mujeres, tienen el poder de generar cambios efectivos y duraderos.
Pence and Hilda Larios, the Aspera team lead in Mexico City. The mission of Mary's Pence is to invest in women across the Americas by funding community initiatives and fostering collaborations to create social change. Mary's Pence is Emanate International's first partner to have a foot in both the developing country as well as in the United States. I'm sure you will find the impacts of this work to be very inspiring. So thank you for being here today. Could you tell us a bit about your background and how you came to work with this organization?
Sure. My background is actually in human resources and organization development, and I worked in corporations in the Twin Cities for many years. And over time, I became much more interested in working with nonprofits, and I landed a job with Mary's Pence. So I've been with Mary's Pence about 13 years, and it's been a great experience.
Excellent.
Yes, I am a social worker, and I have been working for women and social movements for more or less 40 years. And I entered to Mary Pence because I was a grantee of Mary Pence, receiving some funds for 3 years. Then I was invited to be a board member, and I have been working now for 13 years being the team leader of Mary Pence. And I was invited by a compañera that I met working with the refugees here in Mexico.
Wow. So Mary's Pence supports women in the US and in Mexico and Central America. Can you describe the programs that you offer?
Sure. In the United States, our program is a granting program. So we provide grants to women's groups across the country. Our focus is grassroots, small organizations, and frequently we're one of the first grants they receive, which helps kick off their program. We only fund women's organizations. We fund organizations that really grow up from the community. So it's not somebody else coming in, deciding what should happen in the community, but it has to heavily involve the community. And thirdly, it has to focus on long-term social change. So there's many organizations that meet immediate needs of people, and those are really valuable programs. But we fund organizations that are looking to make change in their community long-term to benefit women. So that's what we do in the United States. And that's how we used to operate across the Americas. But a number of years ago, like about 2006, the organization did some strategic planning, and they said, how effective are we being in Latin America, sending money down there and not knowing exactly what happens with that along the way and if it's used most effectively. And they said they wanted to do longer term relationships with the women we work with in Latin America because that's just really beneficial there. So they came up with the Aspera program, and Aspera stands for Economic Systems Providing Equitable Resources for All. So our initial focus was, just economics, but we really work in a holistic way and meet many needs that the women have in the community based on their interest and their requests for our connections. We partner with about 10 groups in 5 different countries. So we have a group in Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, and about 5 groups in El Salvador. And we really focus on long-term relationships with the groups, and many of the groups that are with us started with us 13 years ago when we switched to this model from the beginning. The groups vary greatly in like size and purpose, and Hilda will talk a little bit more about that, but some groups are 15 to 20 women, some are 350 women. So we're very flexible in meeting the needs and working with the groups where they're at.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, you're in 10 different countries. Did I understand that correctly?
5 different countries.
5 different countries. So Mexico, Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and El Salvador?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Wow, that's really quite broad. Okay. And how many employees does Mary's Pence have? And of those, how many are based in the US and how many are native to those 5 countries?
We have 8 employees, 5 are in the United States. So we're doing the infrastructure work of the organization and the grants program in the United States from here. And then there are 3 employees for the Aspera program. Hilda, who lives in Mexico City, but travels extensively except during COVID. And two employees in El Salvador. So they're native from El Salvador. Ava's been with us about 12 years, and Brenda has been with us about, I think, what was it, Hilda, about 5 years, 4 or 5 years? Yeah.
Okay. And Hilda, can you tell us more about Aspera and what your role as the team lead is for that?
Yes, of course. As Catherine was saying, we try to do different work in Central America, basically because it was close to Mexico and the United States. So we decided to begin there a pilot program in Salvador 14 years ago, trying to see how we can partner with the organization that has been there for more years and was willing to enter to the adventure with us around economics, no? Because they were doing other kinds of work, but around the rights of women, but there was also a need to begin doing economics with the women, no? And that's what we saw since the beginning when Mary Spence was giving grants also to the organizations in Central America and Mexico. And we had an experience here in Mexico that we were thinking that we can duplicate it in these other countries. So we went there to Salvador, recommended also by another sister that has been working with Mary Spence, and talked with the organization, and they were willing to begin, as I said, the adventure. That consists in giving them a grant so that they can give it as loans to the women who were part or members of the organization to begin or to continue and strengthen their own economic initiatives, as we call them, no? We don't call them business, but we call them economic initiatives of the women that can vary also from selling candies to doing some artesanías or selling some production of wine, for example. So it's a variety of things. And we did with them like the rules, how to begin, how much interest has to be covered, because one of the things that we discover in getting this Espera program along to begin is that someone needed to take care of it, no? Of the organization. So with the interest, we thought that these women can be paid like a little stipend to take care of the program and to accompany the women since the beginning, no? So we did that, and also I began to work for Mary Spence and trying to travel to all these countries with the coordinators of each organization, trying to find out how things were going little by little in the recovering the money, because it was important for us that the money will get back to the organization and be in circulation. So it will help more and more women in the economic initiatives. That was the beginning, no? And on 3 years later, we did a first evaluation of how things were going. And we saw that they already got very well the idea of managing the whole fund, no? We call it Espera Fund. So we need to move forward, and we began thinking of we have to pay more attention to the economic initiatives, how they can be strengthened, how can they administrate it, the quality, how the markets they have can be expanded. So in 2013, we decided that we need to hire someone that knew more about economics, no? Sure. Because Eva, who at that time was working with us, and myself were not entrepreneurs, no? We were more social workers. And Eva also knew more about health because she's a nurse. So, and the women, the coordinators of the organizations were also more in the social movements, no? So we hired someone who knew more about economics, and it was an interesting thing to do because the women began to realize the resources they have in their own communities, no? And not just the economic resources, because there is a slogan in our program that they will say, we go beyond money. No, we don't just talk about money, but we go beyond money, meaning that, well, the other resources we have and the solidarity among us that we call sorority is very important. So in 2015, we hired someone, and since then we have been trying to have more emphasis in how the business of the women can grow.
Yeah.
But then the pandemic came, no, and we
Yeah.
it's the interesting experience to be more creative. And one thing that we have learned is that the women are always struggling and finding ways of how to bring some income to their houses, no? And so they can sell different things and do different to look for opportunities to have a little more money. So in that period, before the pandemic, we began seeing that the women also had like some gaps, let me say like that, in the mental emotional development, let's say, or emotional intelligence, as we call it now, because of what they have suffered years before during the war, no? Because just Monday, we celebrate the 30 years of the peace accords signature in Salvador. So we work with women that some of them had been part of the time of the war, or some were small children, no?
Yeah.
So we entered to talk with them about mental wellness, knowing also that sometimes when we don't have the emotional intelligence, it's an impediment to make decisions in our own business thing, no? In our economic initiatives, and also the relation with money, that sometimes we as women are taught not to have much relation, no? Men are the ones who bring the money, although these have changed more quicker in the United States than in our countries, but and in rural areas where we work much, no? So well, and then so we have now a new strategic planning that has continued to be holistic, but now we are more clear that the fund is really well managed by the organizations with whom we work. So we want to put more attention to how the economic initiatives can grow and find different ways of have what they say economía solidaria, no? The solidarity economy. That sometimes it's new ways of doing for income, to have income in the ways that we think is not just as capitalism and the system where we live and makes very much inequity can be changed in local places, no, or municipalities. So
yeah, no, that's really important. And I think sometimes we get this idea that, you know, making money is somehow contrary to I think a nonprofit model, or, you know, some of those softer skills. But when you give a woman money, when she's able to generate her own income, she now has agency and an ability to make decisions. And we know from research that women often will turn that around and invest it in their families and in their communities. And so kind of shifting that mentality, I think, is really crucial in terms of really empowering women to, you know, not only be empowered themselves, but also for the greater good for future generations. So I love that that's an approach that you're taking. And I think what I understood, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you have kind of 4 components to your work. So there's the economic autonomy, there's strengthening women's organizations, and then I've also read on your site that there's an aspect of family farming. I'd love to hear more about that. And then emotional well-being. Could you say a little bit more about some of those components that we haven't touched on yet?
Yes, we, after the pandemic, we saw together with the organizations that we work with, was that one of the elements that we see coming in the face of us, it was that as the women were staying in their home, the vegetables, the food were not there, and they could not go to the markets. So 2 or 3 years ago, the Concertación, that it's one of our partners organization, has already been working with the women to have organic production or not organic production, but having some production in their houses, no? So with the pandemic, we did a lot of this because we thought, well, you can give some food to the families, but it will be better if from now on we think more and more of having the food there in the back of their yard, no?
Right, grow it at home, grow it local. Yeah.
Exactly, because one of the aspects that has been a need all over Las Americas, I will say, is the food security, no, and food sovereignty, because we have seen that many of the productions have changed to these exports, exports of one corn or one thing to the needs of others, and we lost what we had been growing since we were. Bueno, I didn't grow. I am an urban woman, but I have learning a lot. It's the corn, no, that is basically for us very, very important, and sometimes it's even lost because of the seeds are not there, the climate. So I think there is an effort is that the organizations are doing, and so that's why we introduce this as our line in the SPERA program, because we think that food and economic initiatives comes together, as a woman will say, no? If I have a vegetable there, I don't spend my money in that, and I have the vegetable there in my backyard.
Sure.
No?
Yeah, there's savings.
And that's also coming with consumption, good, how to eat more fruits and vegetables, no? So it's a very complex program. And as I say, we put it there because we were thinking of, we had to do it. We will accompany, as it has been our emphasis always, accompany the women in what they want to do and see as their basic needs. No?
Excellent. And I'm just curious, Gilda, as a member of the team who sees this mission and model executed on a daily basis, what can you tell us about the impacts of this approach in the field?
I think there's different kinds of impacts. No, let's say, for example, a woman that has some money in her hands, knowing that she doesn't have to ask the husband or the compañero, as I say, for whatever they need, makes a difference. No, even how you stand up and see, I am capable of bringing some dollars to the family. It's an impact that you can see. Not immediately, but 3 or 4 years ago, because it has an impact in this self-esteem. No? Because sometimes, again, as women, we were taught that we were not, do you work? No, I don't work. And then you go to see all the work you do at home. And of course, you do a lot of work, no? So that's one thing. And the other is in a way that they feel like in a different, how can I say, position, trying to do something outside the work of the house that gives them also another way of, I can move from outside home. Although still many of the women want to have their economic initiatives very, very near their home so that they don't go out and don't take care of the children. But little by little, they know, well, I can move and I can take the care of the children, or my husband, and sometimes the oldest daughter does the job, or the grandmothers, no? That are always there.
Do you find that the men are more willing to be participants in domestic care when women are generating income?
I think little by little, no? And I think it's a change even in them because they were born to be the providers, you say? No? So it's a change. It's a change, but I think sometimes they see the importance of the women bringing some money to the houses. And what we see also in all these times is most of the time they work together, no? In a way that they have the economics. For example, if the man goes out to the fields, no, he goes 7 to 11 a.m., then he comes back and he's there in the house. And the woman has a tienda, no, a small store.
Okay.
So he enters to buy or sell things or go to buy things. So they are working together, no? We have seen that in when we see and enter to see which are kind of economic initiatives are best. We see that the family ones are the ones who are growing, because the women sometimes have 7 different ways of bringing some dollars to their house, because they do this, they plant some things, they do bread, so different activities where the husband has to be there and the children, no?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
see, still we have a lot of machismo, pero
I'm sure that takes a lot of generations to kind of minimize, some culturally ingrained patterns. I'm sure that's
exactly. And the other impact is in how the women can feel themselves in their community as leaders, no?
Yeah.
And this has been very, very clear, putting together the economic initiatives they do with the emotional wellness training, where what they do is come together every week for 10 weeks, 10 weeks, and then talk about themselves. And as a woman will say, we talk of what we feel. And it's very, very important, because we cannot talk these things we feel with the family, no? Because sometimes, as we know, they also live some violence in their own home, no?
Sure.
So it's an impact that we have seen, that they say, well, it's again, not just money, it's coming together to see other women and so knowing that they have the same problems. And what we do since the beginning was like, if we work in these 5 countries, let's come together, no?
Yeah.
And although we are all women, our cultures, Mexicans, Guatemalans, Salvadorians, Hondurans, and Nicaraguans, we have slight difference, no, because of our culture. But it's enrichment for all of us to know, well, we are different, but we are the same and struggling with the same issues around economic initiatives and paying back the loans, and how do you do it, and how your husband supports you. So those experiences have been great for much of the women who had been participating.
Yeah.
And the impact after 10 years working with them, we can see that we have now groups of WhatsApp, no? Groups that began in person to person is the interchange, and now they can talk about whatever, almost whatever they want in their WhatsApp groups, no?
Yeah.
And it's incredible in a way how technology also has helped us, because I remember when I began to have a phone call, it was impossible because it was very expensive.
Yeah.
And then to have in the emails, impossible, because not everybody had a computer. But now everyone has a smartphone that sometimes it's not so smart. And more they communicate by WhatsApp, no? So
Yeah. It's a good
so
way
I
to
think,
unite people. Yeah.
and we are very, very careful to support them to have the internet payment or the smartphones, because it's like when we before we didn't know how to read or write. Now, if you don't know how to manage these smartphones, you are out, no? And I think it's another gap that we have to not to let it go broader. No?
Tell me about your course. I understand you have a year-long course that you offer. Am I understanding that right? Can you say more about, what that involves and what how you guide that course?
Yes, it has been very, very interesting, this experience, and we thought it was a dream that will not come to what it has been successful, because we had the 3 coordinators, and 2 of them are in Spain and 1 is in Salvador, but we do all in Zoom. So we are 21 of us including Eva, Brenda, and myself, taking this training through Zoom. And at the beginning, Abigail, who is the Salvadoran psychologist, told us you need 5 hours a week. And you decide when you have, because they send us the material to the Google Classroom. And first to learn to do it, then to have internet, and then some go to the office to work because they don't have smartphones or the computer is there, or they don't have the signal. And so that was part of how to launch this thing. But we had just 1 week ago, 6 months coming together. And it was fabulous because of the 21 women, we were present 18, and 3 of them say different reasons why they couldn't be there, because the meeting was at 6:30 p.m. And some of the women had transportation up to 6 or to 5. So to go back to their houses. So the 3 of them didn't come. So we are learning how to communicate in different ways. Communicate through the Zoom, through the WhatsApp, and writing. So they are telling us, they are giving us tools. No, it's not just, well, you do this, that. No, this is an exercise. If you have to do a message, you have to say what you want very directly, when, and to be clear. And then check out if the other person understands your message. And we do it in the classroom, in the computers, and we also have a WhatsApp group where we put our questions, answers, and some are, for example, we had this experience with Pamela, is the woman in Spain. She's an actress, and she has been working a lot against violence at home. And she did us actress in the Zoom. She put us to move our body, to do the signals, to see our faces and say lines. So it was experience like, what? I didn't know I was an actress, no? So, no, but some of them were really, really actors. So we also do that. And Nancy is the woman that helps us more in how to communicate through the Zoom, through the WhatsApp. And so it's a variety of things. And we also have exercise around sadness, happiness, fear, therefore emotions that are basics. And in these times, lots of us have lost relatives. So the other day we were talking, let's do the exercise of happiness that makes you like try to be in a different mood, although recognizing the sadness of your heart, no? Let's say. So I think it has been great. And I think the idea is that we can, the other theme is leadership, no? But leadership in a different way. And she asked us, and I was telling Catherine, I was surprised, no? To be a leadership, you have to believe in humanity. And I say, I knew I believe in humanity, but when I saw the question, I was not so sure in 2022 if I believe in humanity, no?
Oh.
Pero,
It's been a rough year.
no, so it's a different perspective of what I have been learning about leadership, because it's making us go inside and see what we can do in the outside. And this morning I was thinking of Mary Spence. That's what we did, no? In a way, in Mary Spence, we are working in North America, that it's the inside of Mary Spence, no? But also going out to have other relations to Las Americas. And this was since the beginning. And I thought, see, that's what we all should do, no? Try to go inside every day, they say, and we will be better in having relations. Because I think one of the other things we have learned in Mary Spence is that relations are what make us strong. No?
Yep, no, absolutely. And having a good self-awareness absolutely impacts not only your ability to lead, but your ability to influence and affect sustainable, meaningful change. So that's really crucial to have that as part of your training of what you do. So excellent.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sí. No, go.
Okay. Okay. And so I just wanted to kind of pause for a second and say, if there's anyone who's listening who wanted to be more involved in your work, what would be a good way for them to do that?
Well, we're always interested in hearing from people who like our work. You know, one key way to get connected with us and to hear updates on us is to make a donation and be on our donor list. So that's very important. But I'm also delighted to ever hear from anybody who wants to support the work in a different way in volunteering. We have volunteers who do some writing for us. We can always use help spreading the word on social media. I have volunteers that help translate things. So there's a whole variety of ways that you can help. If you happen to be in a community where sorry about that. If you happen to be in a community where we have grantees, there's possibility of connecting with the grantees, helping us with photos of the grantees, things like that. So I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody who's interested in the work and wants to learn more and brainstorm some ways they can get involved.
Okay, wonderful. And we'll make sure that all of your information is in the description below so people can reach out to you very easily. So yeah, thank you for that. And then I'm curious, how do you assess the impact of your efforts? Because, you know, everything I've heard, from economic empowerment to, you know, local farming, you know, strengthening families, strengthening communities, all of that is really crucial. But sometimes it's hard to really quantify, you know, your impact. So could you say more about how you assess the impact that you're having?
I think it is true that it's really hard to measure those things. And it's really hard to put the burden of measuring a lot of things on the women, because that measurement aspect isn't impacting their lives. So we're very careful not to ask too much of them. Initially, we measured the action of the loan pool. And that's not a perfect metric because it doesn't measure the impact on. But, you know, we put a certain amount in the loan pool, and, you know, at least 10 times more in loans than the original amount. So we know that the women are being impacted by having the loans and investing in their businesses. A couple of years ago, we did an in-depth evaluation with some external facilitators who were from El Salvador, and we heard from the women about the impacts of the work on their lives and what they enjoyed about the work and how it feels to them. I know when we gather the women, because multiple times we've gathered women from across the countries to be together through some emotional wellness workshops, through some celebrations of the work, and that aspect of traveling really empowers them and gives them a broader view of the world. And you can see that as you talk to them. Some of the stories from the emotional wellness workshops when we did gather people were just like heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, because women talked about, you know, the difficulty of their lives and the impact of talking about their emotions and overcoming depression through talking about their emotions. So one of the ways I think, measure the success is the long-term engagement with the women. And as I said, many of all the groups that started with us are still with us. And we've had long-term relationships with the 10 groups that we're working with. And they wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't worth their time, if they weren't progressing as organizations. They really trust and invite Hilda and Ava and Brenda into their conversations. And some of them are really difficult conversations about leadership issues, et cetera. So that level of trust is another way I think we measure the impact of the work. When we did do the evaluation, the facilitators who've, you know, done evaluation work for many organizations just, you know, kind of marveled at how different we were, because we wanted to engage with them and talk with them about the progress of the work, the 2-day workshop that they did. And they ended up saying, well, we know you know the women because you know their names, you've been in their homes, et cetera. And many nonprofits that work internationally don't have that closer relationship. And I really appreciate that that is something that Hilda brought to the program from the very start. And I think it's made a huge difference.
Mm-hmm. And you've kind of alluded to this a little bit, but so there's impact, but then there's also sustainability. So could you expand a little bit more too on how you know that your efforts are sustainable long term?
Mhm.
I would like to add a little bit about impact and also sustainability, because I can see in CEPROSI that it's a partner organization in Nicaragua, and they are working as the Concertación and the others organizations with whom we work. They receive funds from other organizations, no? And for example, CEPROSI has a project of having their houses better. I don't know how to say it, but their homes, not to be better. So they have loans to do this, not through Espera. But I can see, as we were talking, how women invest in their families, no? And you could see the changes of 10 years ago in their houses, no? And I think that this comes from the other organization, but they also work holistically, no? And so you can see some better places in where they live with all these efforts. And it's a very specific impact, no? And the other thing is the way they invest in their children. Now the children have computers, no? And maybe they will never thought of having a computer if they don't see that the children will be better, because this is also the idea of old mothers and parents, no? That the children are better than they. And I think there are some changes in that, no? And although sometimes we would like to say that they don't go and they don't have to go to the United States to migrate because everything is solved in the countries, we haven't done this, no? And I think there are multiple reasons why people go to the United States, but I will invite all of us to see more to the south instead to the north, no? But that is a dream. So I think our hope is someday that they will not have to leave their places because of lack of money. The security issue is another thing, no? So around sustainability, I think that's what we are trying to do in a long term, no? We know at first we thought, well, 5 years and the women will be in a better place, but I think it's more than 5 years and the context have changed. In a way, I can see that when we arrived there, they were organized because of the Mitch and other hurricanes. But now I think we have, with the pandemic, go, how do you say, backwards in many aspects, no? Not just economically. So, but we have challenges, and I think always the challenges open us opportunities. And I think the women are trying to not to see just for survival, but are trying to be more sustainable in the future, no? In the future.
I'd love to hear from both of you. What is a lesson or an insight that you've gained, not only from working, with these organizations and with these women, but also about development in general? I would love to hear, a takeaway or an insight that you've learned in your time doing this work.
Catherine?
So interestingly, I came without any international experience to Mary's Pence and without any development experience. I came from kind of the corporate world. So everything I did, we learned kind of on the fly, or from Hilda, or from, our program participants. I think that the relationship aspect is key. That's one key thing that's hard to do. And not many people do it, not many organizations do it well, but that's, extremely important to the work. I think the flexibility is another aspect that you need. So we because our funding stream is is individual dominantly. We don't have to grant and promise to do certain things. We have the flexibility to adapt to what the women need or what comes up of interest to them. So, even, funding the online learning that was the year-long program, we didn't have to plan ahead and ask for a grant and have it come in, down the road. We could just react when it was the right time to do it because our funding stream doesn't ask us to plan out that far. So in developing countries, not having a long timeline for planning is crucial, and we're able to adapt to that. So there's a couple things. Hilda, what would you add?
So I think it's very, very important to listen to the women in this case. And I have found out that in the development arena world, sometimes we come with solutions that are from our own perspective, no? And I have seen in my experience that we as organizations come together more when there is an emergency or something around refugees, for example. That was my experience, and we work together, no? But after the return of the refugees to their places, and we try to work together as a group of organizations in development, it was very, very, very hard to come together to what to do, no? It's easy to say, well, let's put water in the community, no? But that's just one part of the development that even the governments have the obligation to do. But to do things with the people in coordination with other foundations, it's really hard, no? And I will hope that we have been learning, also, we know there are big, big organizations that are having a lot of money, as for Foundation, and to name one, and Oxfam, but it's very, very, very difficult how to continue faithful, no, to the groups, although the countries change. And we can see in Mexico, no, when they decided that Mexico was in the first world because the president said so years ago, many funding went out. And we could see that in Mexico, we have poverty, no? And the same thing happened in Nicaragua, the same thing happened in Guatemala, and then we go to another continent. And I think, well, we should go to Africa, Asia, and other countries. But sometimes I feel like, let's be faithful to one place, because changes take years, no? Years. And we have to support more the local organizations in their having their own money to decide what they do. So we gave the organization the Spera Fund. We tried to see that it's there, but they decide how to manage and how the rules of the lending will be, knowing that it has to go back. And sometimes the organizations, they began that way, the funders, and then turn out, I found one organization saying, well, now that you learn how to do the fund, give us the fund, keep just the interest, and then from there go. And I say, well, why? Let them have the fund, no? And not just the interest. So I think there has to be more communication about among development organizations, and try to be faithful and have a long-term trying to be there. And again, I will say, I sometimes feel that what the local staff gains as a salary doesn't have any comparison to what a woman or a man working for a foundation international has as a salary, no? And so there are things that, and always try to follow what they want, no? Know what we want, and don't go year by year, because we have seen organizations, partners organizations, going through just projects 1 year, and then next year, what happened with the salaries, no? And it's like, they are always, and I don't know why they haven't shout more, the local organizations saying, we need this, no? We don't just need 5% of administration. So, well, I have a lot to say, but I will
Yeah.
stay
Okay.
because I wish we
Yeah.
had come to a better place, no? Now, but
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of discrepancies in this sector. I certainly can understand that. I'd be curious to know about a person or a community that's, and I'd love to hear from both of you, that's touched you in your work. Do
mhm.
you have any examples that you'd like to share?
I was telling Catherine that I have a lot since all the coordinators, because to tell you the truth, the work we do, we say we are 3 staff persons, but the work is also done by the coordinators and by the sometimes more than one coordinator of the SPERA program.
Right.
So I really have learned a lot from them. I love their passion and their commitment, no, for change, because they are women. We know women that had been there since the war, after the war, and they continue to be there for this benefit of themselves and the women, and trying to change the structures, no, and sometimes being very disappointed, not because of the women, but of the
Yeah.
governments. No, I'm thinking of Nicaragua, but I will not say
Sure.
more. But I have been inspired by many of them. And also I have to say that I am inspired by many nuns, no? That one advantage that they had, because there are still many nuns in Central America and Mexico working for the women, they have the 24/7 days for the women, the people there, no? And I think they had give us examples of commitment, full commitment, even living there in the places, knowing the languages, and listening to the women, no? So there are 5 or 6 nuns there that I don't want to mention one because there I skip one, no, pero there are also. And the women, the 18 women that are in this training, for example, that we invite them to commit to this from Mexico to Nicaragua, I really admire them, because with all their things they have to do and the struggles, sometimes they do better the homework than myself. We don't say homework, and so I feel like they are really eager to learn, no? And that's another thing that, and the other is the gratefulness they have. I think that I have learned a lot of them to be grateful, and sometimes we give for granted many things, no?
Yeah.
The gratefulness that they have for their organizations and for Mary Spence is incredible.
Yeah. And Catherine, what about for you? Anyone in particular who's really made an impact?
It's kind of hard, like Hilda, to name one person. So I think the individual women that try a new business or travel to a different country with Mary Pence are what inspire me. I remember one of our first gatherings, we went to a place in Guatemala near the shore, and we had to get on a boat to get to the location. And for some of the women, it was the first time they'd ever been on a boat and out of their local community, and they took vans and they took boats and they got there, and it's stepping out of their comfort zone, and it's just inspiring to me. So I think it was Filippo was the one I remember that had never been on a boat before, but their kind of love of life and their willingness to try new things and adventure in a life that's much less comfortable than ours. And I feel the same way about the leaders of the grantee organizations in the United States. They're so dedicated to their issues, and the issues involve all kinds of things, from immigration rights to, pay the difficulties of payday lending, to African immigrants voting and civic participation. It's just, like so inspiring to be able to support this work.
Excellent. Well, just, to close one more time, if somebody wanted to support your work or participate, what would be the best way for them to do that?
The best way would be to go to our website and click on at the top, you can just get our e-news, low commitment, but it will get you connected to us and keep you up to date on our work. You can make a donation on our website. Mary's Pence is 90% supported by individual donors. So individual donors are critical to our success and our ability to continue this work. And our phone number is on our website. You can give us a call and I'd be happy to chat.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you both for being here today. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I appreciate the mentality of the work, and really empowering women, not just economically, but, across all various ways. So I commend you for that and keep up the good work. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. In the name of us, of Mary Pence, and all of the women that you are interested in.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Here at Emanate International, it is our mission to promote nonprofits and social enterprises that equip individuals and communities to become independent, autonomous, thriving members of society. Indeed, Mary's Pence is certainly doing great work to support sustainable economic development and ensure dignity for women from several different communities across 5 different countries. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be in the know for future inspirational conversations with other leaders who are making great gains and improving our world. Thank you.